most of you wanted to know, how do I really ask my management that I need more than flexibility? Or how do I ask my management that I want us to shift our employee benefits? How can I be a true leader in that sense? So thank you so much for sticking around. We have so much planned for the rest of the afternoon. So I'll bring on my wonderful panel members. The very first one is Christy Ribble. Christy is the founder and CEO of the Human Group, and it's Human, Huuman. I know, Christy, you have corrected me multiple times, so I now know it by heart. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you do amazing work, not only with leaders, but also with employers and corporations in how to make the workplace work for humans like us, right? So thank you so much for doing that. And I'll give you a few minutes to also introduce yourself. I really don't like introducing people because I'm always like messing something up. So I always leave it to you to do that. We also have my amazing friend, Sarah Gibbons. She actually, I know Sarah is gonna laugh when she comes on, but Sarah actually was my amazing business mom, life coach. I mean, she was everything. And she's the first person that has made me cry. Even my husband is always, you never cry about anything. But Sarah has the award for making Blessing cry. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. I know you work a lot with women executives and even male executives, but you work mostly with women in the workplace, especially those that are up in the corporate ladder, that are able to, oversee some policies. And so I'm hoping that you can help us with how can we get through to those people, and how can we be leaders ourselves in the workplace. I'm going to bring on our last panel member here, my amazing friend, Anne Michels. Hello, Anne.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. So great to be here today.
A long time ago, we just emailed back and forth. We've been talking about doing this for a long time. And I reached out to you because right in the beginning of the pandemic, you had taken paid leave with Microsoft. And I was wondering how you did that and, what was the precaution, if you will, because, there's a lot of penalty these days for taking this kind of leave, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So we'll get to that. I don't want to give too much away, but Anne, you are the head of marketing for Microsoft Teams Free, and you've been with Microsoft for a very, very long time. I've been following your journey. I can't wait for us to dive deeper into our panel today. So welcome, everyone. Thank you once again for this opportunity. I want to start off with, Christy, and then we'll move through Sarah and Anne. Why don't you just give us a brief introduction into who you are, the work you do, and how you support working parents?
Okay. Hi. First of all, thank you so much. I brought the mug today just for so thank you so much, Blessing. I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of this. As she said, I'm the founder of the Human Group, where we're all about humanizing the workplace and developing human-first leaders who are intelligent across culture, gender, generation, and emotion, essentially the whole gamut of our humanity. And I came to this work in a very circuitous way, as many of us, I think, did. But I did spend nearly 2 decades in wireless technology, in international roles that demanded I be on an airplane more than half of my working time. So when I had a baby, I realized that the way I had always worked and the roles that I was held in organizations had to change because I didn't feel or see any evidence that corporate America was going to change with me or support me. So I did make that change. I did leave the corporate world. I do have a caregiving gap on my resume before I returned to more flexible work, which has ultimately, over the last several years, led me to what I'm doing today. I'm extraordinarily passionate around supporting and advocating for leaders who also happen to be mothers. And I definitely have the philosophy. I believe that we are all leaders. I also teach a course at Stanford, literally called Motherhood and Work: Challenges and Opportunities for Change. Cool. So I really dig deep and am passionate about this work. So thank you, Blessing.
Thank you so much, Christy. So,
Yeah.
Sarah, tell us about yourself and what you do to support working parents.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you for having me. And Christy, I love everything that you said. So I am a working mother. I run a company called SG & Co. I am incredibly committed to redefining what it looks like to live your legacy. And I fundamentally believe that our leadership is our legacy, and that the more we are connected to and paying attention to how we show up in leadership, in other words, the conversations that we start with, the way that we engage with our spouses, with our children, with our with our colleagues in the boardroom, that really starts to define the impact that we're having throughout the day. So I work with very driven women and also men that are hold a lot of responsibility, both in the corporate world and also as entrepreneurs. And I work with them in a number of different ways. And similar to Christy, I spent about 15 years at a early on in a tech company called Amazon. I started with them in 2000, and then went on to News Corp and also worked over in London, opening up international business there, and really realized how much I love being on the other side of things, being able to support particularly working parents, but also in a way that brings out the experience that we're all desiring. I think we all chose motherhood for a reason, and we also chose our ambition for a reason. And I'm really interested in how they intersect in creating that experience that aligns with our values. So that's about me. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm a mom of 3 boys. So my house is really loud, and I'm married to a Texan.
All right, Anne, tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Blessing. And first of all, thanks so much for bringing us together here today. I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic, because it's such an important one, and one that we don't talk enough about in society today. So as you mentioned, I've actually been at Microsoft for quite some time, over 10 years. I'm a director of marketing. I've been working in the tech industry for over 13 years, quite some time. I decided to stick around in the tech industry because I truly enjoy working in this area. But most importantly, also, I'm mother to a beautiful little girl, Tori, who's turning 2 years in March. And so over the last 2 years, I've really been experiencing those joys and also the challenges of motherhood and being a working woman in tech myself. And what I have realized is, on the one hand, that it isn't always easy, and that there are many things that can be done to make it easier for working women, not just in the tech industry, but in the industry, like in the working place all up. What I've also seen is that what I truly believe is that we do need more women, specifically in the tech industry. And that also specifically means that we need more working mothers in the tech industry. So it's a topic that I'm very passionate about, because I believe that having children should not prevent you from being able to pursue a successful career. And so I've kind of like made it a little bit of my agenda to empower other women who also, just like me, decide to choose both a family and children, and also a job that they're really passionate about.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that's the premise. I feel like you're reading the mission and vision of Mother Honesty, which is how can we effectively combine work and family? Because we are passionate about our work. We do love to work, but we also need to be able to support what it takes for our family to survive and thrive. So thank you so much, Anne. And my very first question actually goes to you. So a recent article by the court on 13 women who were driven from the workforce recently caught our attention. And I'm going to read a short excerpt of that article to you. So the article says, not only are women's jobs disappearing, but women are disappearing from the workplace by quitting. While the decision to step back may seem like a choice many women facing the increased domestic responsibilities that come with sick family members, daycare closures, and virtual school, these women describe it as anything but. So essentially, women are being forced out of the workforce, and we're facing this huge task of domestic responsibilities, taking care of the kids, taking care of everyone, essentially. And so my question for you is, as a leader in a Fortune 50, Fortune 100 company, what are some of the things you're hearing from female leaders and also from men that are hopefully allies in this whole thing?
Yeah, boy, what a year, right? I think that sums it up perfectly. Actually, that quote that you just read is really great summary because it really states what working women have been going through in the last year. Over the last couple of months, especially since the pandemic has started, I've connected with a lot of people at Microsoft and also through my professional network on this topic. And there are mainly two things that I'm hearing. And also things that I'm actually experiencing myself, which is first, everybody is exhausted. Everybody is tired. Everybody's just feeling overwhelmed. I mean, dealing with the worldwide pandemic itself, that is a situation none of us have ever gone through, luckily, and that is already taxing. But then if you also have a family and you have a job as a woman, there are additional challenges that you need to navigate. Let's just talk about school and daycare closures, for example. If you have children who are in virtual school right now, well, you need to figure out how to work and watch them at the same time, because you cannot simply put a 7-year-old in front of a laptop and say, okay, I'll see you in a couple of hours and you figure it out. That simply doesn't work. Or just the small things. Let's just say on the weekends, you would normally take your kids to the zoo, the aquarium, or to the playground. If all of these places are closed, you all of a sudden need to figure out new things, what you can actually do with your kids. Or specifically also what I hear from a lot of people is that their normal support network is currently not available. I'm actually experiencing that myself because I'm 8 months pregnant, so I'm actually expecting my second baby in just a couple of weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully. And what we were originally planning was to have my mom come over from Germany so that she could help, right? Because we have a toddler, and what happens if I have to go to the hospital at night? You can't just leave the toddler unattended at home, of course. Well, because of the travel restrictions, that's not possible right now. She won't be able to come over. So we're currently working and trying to make backup plans so that we actually have somebody who can watch Tori whenever I have to go to the hospital. And those, of course, challenges, right? Something that we didn't even think about before the pandemic. And that's what I'm hearing from everybody, is that they're struggling with new challenges right now. What I'm also hearing from people is that they're just trying to make it work. And for some women, that actually means then also taking a step back at work or from work. I have a friend of mine, and she made the decision to quit her job completely right now so that she could actually help the kids with homeschooling. And she wasn't really happy about it, but it was the logical decision for her family. She discussed it with her husband, and well, let's just be honest, her husband is the person who's making more money in the family, right? And so they had to make the decision, and she was then the person who decided, yes, because of that situation, it makes more sense for me to quit my job and watch the children right now. And that is really the reality for many women. And those are tough decisions that a lot of women are faced with right now. And what I'm seeing, what my experience is at least, that there's still a little bit of a lack of acknowledgement for the situation in the broader society. And that's why I'm so happy that we're actually talking about this today here.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of acknowledgement, I'm going to bring Christy on. Christy, I think, we're hearing, I think in the same article, an employer telling a mom, all we hear is screaming, and another employer said, come into work or you're going to be let go. So how can employers acknowledge this situation that we continue to find ourselves in? I think one of the toughest part of where we are right now as a society is that we have to wake up the next day, right? And it's the same situation. It's not like I'm going to sleep and wake up and it's going to be a brand new world. This is it for a long time. So how should employers acknowledge this tough situation that a lot of parents are finding themselves?
Yeah, that's certainly a great question. And first of all, shame on those companies that are saying, these employers that are saying these things to their own employees. Shame on them for not taking a closer look at the full picture and for being really behind in empathetic leadership. Come the pandemic, and those that were behind are even further behind, right? The second thing is we can't lump all women into one category to say how they're faring, all mothers. We need to put data across the socioeconomics and ethnicity and partner status, because some groups are faring less well than others. We know that single mothers face greater penalties than married mothers. Black and Hispanic mothers have a greater penalty than white mothers, etc. But that said, all mothers are facing a caregiving crisis. We were in the middle of a caregiving crisis before the pandemic hit, right? And so I heard this quote a couple months ago: the pandemic, the cracks were already there. The pandemic essentially was the dynamite in the cracks that just blew it all apart. And I love that quote because it illustrates it perfectly. But if we look a little bit at the history and how history and demographics are changing, and we look at the facts, we see that there is this steady rise in dual income households. We are gone are the days of the past when you only had 25%, which were dual income. We're exceeding 60%. And yes, the pandemic is altering that a little bit. As Anne said, some people are making this choice to step out. We have that growing number of working mothers. 70% of children under 18, and we have a rise in breadwinning mothers, and that's because family composition has changed. There's been a steady increase in single mothers since 1975. We're caring for aging family members. Older people are going to outnumber younger by 2030. Adult children living with parents, the increased cost to raise children, and then the time spent parenting and time spent working has increased. In fact, there's a research that's been done that said working mothers today spend more time parenting than non-working mothers of the 1970s. That, coupled with the increased demand of 24/7 work that all employees are facing, it's not sustainable at the end of all this. So literally employees are on overload. So are they faring well? Not at all. But what intelligent companies do know is that this is the time for change. And if they're paying attention and listening, we're a year in now, really a year in, which is scary to say that this has been going on a year, that, this pandemic serves as this, like science says, they call it the punctuated equilibrium, right? Which is this break of normality that we can dramatically shift the course for women and mothers at work if we take advantage of the fact that we're stripping things down and we're able to build back. So most organizations have seen, and they've learned so much this year, and do know that status quo is not going to work at all. So most companies that I've been talking to, the blocks are out. They're out. And smart companies are starting to rebuild brick by brick, right? And starting to look closely at that deep structural change. And that obviously goes for racial equality as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christy, for that. So Sarah, let's bring you in. I think everybody's aware of the numbers, the number of, women that have left the workforce and all that, not so great news that we've all familiarized ourselves with. But I want to ask you, what are you hearing from moms, especially the moms that you're coaching, high-powered career women, which we hear that a lot of them have left the workforce. A lot of them left the workforce. What are you hearing from these moms in how are they doing, and how, what is the situation with the employer right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because there's two experiences I'm hearing. One is this whole experience has created a shattering in confidence. So I've noticed we are all faced with new decisions we have to make on the fly. And so many of the women that I work with who would naturally describe themselves as strong decision makers and really confident are starting to doubt a lot more. And that is certainly impacting the way in which they show up in the workplace, but also how they show up within their families. So that's been a big topic of conversation. But another interesting thing has happened. And I think this is true with anything where there is dark, there's light. What I've noticed is that it has created a lot of intentionality within working moms of, wait a minute, what is it that I really want? And all of a sudden, now that push has come to shove, I notice with a lot of working moms, it's getting them really present to, up until now, I've been a lot on autopilot. And what are the choices that perhaps I've just been making because of societal pressure, of expectations, of how I was raised, or my own expectations that I put on myself? And so there's been this really beautiful new conversation that's come up where I've noticed working moms actually starting to consider themselves part of the equation. And some of it just looks, is in a conversation, and some of them are really reaching out and asking for more support around, hey, there's something here that isn't working for me. Whether it's, am I in the right job? Am I getting the purpose that I want? Do I have the connection with my kids that I really want? So it's really created a space for a lot of working moms, I think, to say, hold on, time out. I actually think I want a different experience here. And I think that is gold in this whole situation that is really awful, but that I am seeing as a real opportunity for working moms.
Absolutely. Sarah, why are you still here?
Yeah.
Who do you then think that working moms need to be? So we're going to get into advocacy in the workplace.
Yeah.
And really asking for that support in a way that truly feels empathetic, but also is coming from a place of, I want to support this company. I want to support myself. Who do you think working moms need to be in order to advocate for themselves?
Yes. Well, I love that you ask that, because I think we get so focused on what we need to do. Who do I need to go to? What my direct report should be doing for me? What my partner should be doing for me? And I, as someone who's really interested in what leadership looks like, if you think about it, leadership is our way of being. And so who we be informs what we do. So I spend a lot of time looking at, with my clients, of if the experience is you want your company to create more space or understand your boundaries, then who is it that you need to be? Well, if you want to be confident, and really you want to be courageous, you want to be clear on what it is you want. So you want to stand in what it looks like to be direct, what it looks like to be fully expressed. And so I spend a lot of time with my female clients in particular, because naturally we women don't want to create conflict. We, certainly don't want to look selfish or needy or greedy, because that right away could, paint a picture that we aren't all in. And so, yeah, that's a great question. Like, who do you need to be? And that question is going to be different for everyone. It really also has to, if you're someone who struggles with asking for what you want, then maybe you need to be more brave. If you're someone who isn't clear on what it is you really need, then maybe you're someone who needs to be decisive. So it really goes back to what is it that you're trying to create, and then asking yourself that really beautiful question that you just asked of, like, who do you need to be? What quality do you need to lead from? Do you need to stand in to create movement towards the experience it is you really, really want?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm gonna flip back to Anne here for a minute. We have a question from the audience, and I know that you've spent a lot of time working with your parents group at Microsoft. So the question says, I lead a caregiving circle, ERG, at my company. What resources do you recommend to build the capacity of the group and influence organizational policy?
Yeah, so first of all, great to hear that you are leading a caregiving circle, and thank you for that, right? Because we need these people at every company, right? We need these people that really ask the question, hey, what can be done in addition to what our company, what our HR team, what our benefits team might already be doing? Let me actually share an example of the work that I have been doing at Microsoft and what I've recently and what I have learned there. So Microsoft has great benefits for parents, right? There's no question about that. And I'm really thankful for everything that that the company has done for working parents. But my experience as I was having my first child and I was going through the process of going on parental leave, my experience was just, hey, it's a good experience, but it's not the perfect experience. And I had the impression that more could be done to support parents in this specific step, because when you go out on parental leave, that is really a very critical career inflection point, and a lot of people don't think about it in that way. So I simply started like sitting down and started some brainstorming of how could we improve that experience. And I started writing down a plan, because what I realized was that parents have a lot of questions as they prepare for parental leave. And while Microsoft has a lot of resources and a lot of support for parents in that stage, it is sometimes really difficult for people to understand all the resources. They can feel overwhelmed. They have a lot of questions, and everybody's like trying to make a plan, and everybody's going through the same experience. So everybody's actually kind of like wasting time because somebody else had gone through that experience already. And it can really feel lonely for people. I mean, if you're pregnant already, right? And then in addition, you need to figure everything out. So what I decided simply was, I asked myself the question, how could I improve that experience as an employee? And I wrote down a plan, because I had some ideas about how we could create a more structured experience that would guide people through that process. And we're actually about to launch a project, which I'm calling Expecting, which will exactly tackle that challenge. And as part of that experience, we'll be sending a welcome email to people who are about to go on parental leave. We will be holding HR sessions, like parental leave one-on-one sessions, where people can bring their questions and really get them answered. We're working on workshops related to that topic as well, and or even on a parental network that enables you to connect with a mentor who has recently gone through that experience. So my learnings out of that, first of all, make it happen. If you have an idea, sit down and write down a plan, and then find people in your organization who can help you with that. First, you need other people, right? Because doing things all on your own is really challenging. So I went out and found a V team of other people, other working moms actually at Microsoft, who are passionate about that project and about that experience. And I was able to rally them around me. But then you also need leadership support. And that is really, really important, especially if you are already leading a caregiving circle and you want to see how can you expand the influence. Find leaders like the CVP even in your organization who is interested in improving the experience that employees have in that area, so that they can become your advocate and your support and really kind of like support you at that broader leadership level.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that. I know I used to lead a parents group back when I was in corporate America, and that was one of the things we did as well, was find men allies, find allies in leadership, and really bring our plan to them, and they then became our advocates. So thank you so much for that advice. Let me come back to Christy. Christy, many employers believe that flexibility, which we all somewhat received, right, through COVID, 50% of working moms are working from home right now. So many employers believe that, hey, we give them flexibility, even though COVID really gave us flexibility. So now moms are saying, well, flexibility is not enough, right? Some moms are actually, we had one mom in the comment section say, I actually love to work, so flexibility is not my issue. My issue is I don't feel supported. So how can parents request more than flexibility from an employer that wants to humanize the workplace, right? What is the best strategy for that?
Well, I think there's again, one size fits all doesn't always work. But I will say for parents, for us having to go in and advocate for ourselves, start with the data. The data is your friend. This is going to take away the fear of you feeling like you're asking for more, because the data backs you up. I mean, this is global data too. This is not just national data. This is the World Economic Forum, the OECD, the International Labor Organization, McKinsey, and Lean In. All the data is showing that this is not a me problem. This is a we problem. And I think when we start from that place, while it is personal to us, while we do need a lot, benefits and flexibility and whole leadership styles. But when we can advocate also from the data, it really takes it away, and to say, I'm not advocating for me, I'm advocating for the betterment of all of the caregivers in my company and for the company's profitability too. And secondly, when you do talk about flexible work, what we found is that means so many different things to different people. And so it's really important to figure out what that definition is. What is your boss's definition of flexibility? Is it part-time? Is it location variety? Is it random hours? And then really make sure you all are clear on that and commit to a certain flex work style. So that's what I say. I always say start with the data because it is clear. Everyone has research that's pulled out specifically around mothers, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason there's not a whole set of ongoing data around fathers, because when you impact mothers, you're ultimately impacting the whole of gender equality too. You're tackling a larger problem. So anyway, I know we're limited time, and I have more to say, but that's the. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christy. We are running out of time because our next panel is coming up as well. But I wanted us to close with one last question, and feel free to pick or choose. Actually, one question is, how can moms that feel like the employers are not being supportive, right? So maybe they feel their management is not supportive of their role right now as a mother, and they are not sure where to start. In terms of having this discussion or even approaching the subject, right? So how can these moms actually approach that subject? The other question is, what employee benefits are you hearing or seeing right now that can be useful to working moms right now? So I'll actually start with, and we'll walk down the ladder.
You said to start with me?
Yeah.
Okay, on the types of benefits?
So moms are feeling like employers are not supportive enough. Approach that. And if there's any benefits that you see that has been useful to working moms.
So I think that not everyone fits into neat little benefits boxes, and benefits historically have been dangled like these presents that don't always work. And the fact that we even call them benefits means that they're extras. So we should have more of our humanity built into our work life for everyone, because we know we can't separate work and home anymore. That does not exist. And employees, not just mothers, want personalized experiences. And if you read a little bit about Gen Z that is coming up into the market right now, they want very specific personalization in how they move along their career journey. So beyond, I think we go beyond benefits when we really understand about career paths, of course, paid family leave, and of course, adopting a framework for balancing career and life paths are critical. But that would be my answer to that.
Perfect. Thank you, Christy. Anne?
Yeah, let me address the first question. So if you are in a situation at your company where you feel your company isn't really supporting you enough in this current situation, it is really important to speak up. Because my experience is that your leadership might simply not be aware of that, because they might be in a completely different situation and they might not be aware of the lack of support that you're missing. So what does speaking up mean? Well, first of all, you need to find somebody who you're comfortable to speak with about this topic. That can be your manager, but if it's not your manager, maybe it's first other coworkers, because it's sometimes easier to bring a topic up together as a group. Don't be afraid to also reach out at people at the company that you don't know, but that might be interested in this topic. Your HR team, your benefits team, and so on. They want to hear from their employees. And so if it is a situation that they're not aware of yet, they will often be thankful if you bring it to them and if you raise that topic, so that they can then work together as a group, but potentially even work with you how to improve the situation for parents.
Absolutely. And Sarah?
Yeah, I love what both of you have said. I think the one thing that stands out to me around the first question is that I think it can just feel so overwhelming. We are already starting on our back foot in the morning. And so I think just if your end result is that you ultimately want to get your employer to listen to you more and to perhaps change policy or to add more opportunities in around support, is to really look at what's the baby step you can take that day. Maybe it's just connecting with one person. Maybe it's reaching out and getting a meeting booked. But I think where I notice we just get stuck is that we are living in an overwhelmed situation. And so I would just invite you all to don't get intimidated by the big result you want, and to just start with baby step, and then tomorrow's baby step. And the other thing I'll say is a couple of I work with some really big companies with their senior exec teams, and they're really open to hearing ideas of things that their employers are wanting to invest in that they feel would support them. And so don't be afraid. If you see something cool, send it over to your manager. But I think that goes back to that willingness to just speak out and share. And that also means, hoping that you've got some trust in the bank with your team around you. That also is hugely helpful.